Let's go back to the story of Stormy Daniels and the changing story of Donald Trump. It's a dramatic twist, all right. The US President Donald Trump has changed his tune on what he knew and what he didn't. He was so unequivocal on not knowing, on not having been involved in this $130,000 payout to her. But what we've learned in the past 24 hours is, well, the opposite of what the president said. He didn't just say, he explicitly and emphatically insisted on. So did his people. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, running interference on his behalf, seemed to have been caught out by it like everyone else. CNN's senior congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, spoke to us earlier this afternoon from Washington.
This is a significant reversal, and it contradicts everything the White House and the president have been saying for weeks, that the president was not involved, that the only person that was involved in this payment was Michael Cohen, who was the president's personal attorney. The president had no awareness of this. The president denies everything about this story. Well, it turns out, that's not true. The president has been essentially deceiving the American public by telling them one thing, that he was not involved, which he said clearly just a few weeks ago on Air Force One. He said he had no knowledge of this payment, but it turns out that he did have knowledge of that payment because he admitted through his new attorney, Rudy Giuliani, as well as through his Twitter feed, that he was knowledgeable and he was involved with this payment, and he reimbursed Michael Cohen for $130,000. And this raises significant credibility issues and political issues for the White House, but also potential legal issues as well. So this scandal really is just unfolding.
Yes, the legal issues are fascinating. They're possibly less interesting in a tabloid sense, but they're the most important issues of all, aren't they? And that is that if he paid the money to keep Stormy Daniels quiet, then he was essentially trying to affect the outcome of the election campaign, because this would have been damaging to him in the run-up to the election. And that is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. There are laws on the books, campaign finance laws, to prohibit gifts being made and payments being made that are campaign-related during the campaign season. There are hard money limits. The limit is $2,700. Well, $130,000 is a lot more than $2,700. And the president did not disclose this as any sort of campaign donation or a gift, an in-kind contribution. Nothing like that was disclosed, and if it were, it would be a violation of the limits, but it certainly, at the very least, it needed to be disclosed under federal law. This is one major significant complication. Now, the White House has said that the president has suggested, well, this had nothing to do with the campaign. Rudy Giuliani suggested it had nothing to do with the campaign, but Rudy Giuliani himself has contradicted himself in the last 24 hours, suggesting on Fox News this morning on a separate interview that, well, one reason why we went forward with this, because could you imagine if this came out right before the election? This was right around the time of the third presidential debate. Yeah. He said that on Fox News. So that suggests there was a significant campaign interest to silencing this alleged affair during the election, just days before the election, because it also came at that time of that Access Hollywood tape came out of the president bragging about groping women. So this was clearly, it appears to have a campaign connection, and it raises, again, that question about whether he violated federal election campaign laws.
Manu, what on earth is going on here? Because you go back to that conversation, you go back to what the president said on Air Force One, and I've just been looking at what he said. He was emphatic, unequivocal, singular, and absolute about his denials, that he knew this money was paid and that he had repaid Michael Cohen or had any part whatsoever in the payment of $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. He was just totally explicitly unequivocal. Now you have Rudy Giuliani bumbling his way seemingly towards the truth, and then Trump saying, oh yes, I did. But what was Giuliani playing at? Why did he do this?
Well, they made the concerted decision to disclose this. This was a decision that Giuliani made with Trump's support. They made the decision last night for Giuliani to make this bombshell disclosure. And it stunned people in the White House. The White House officials had no idea Giuliani was going to do this. They had no clue. Everybody was caught flat-footed. Even Sean Hannity on his program, who is one of the president's biggest cheerleaders, one of his biggest advisors.
Even Sean Hannity.
Stunned.
The president's PR man.
Exactly. And he gave he gave Giuliani multiple attempts to walk back what he said. He said, well, I don't think you're right about that. Rudy, are you sure? And Rudy said, no, I'm telling you, the president reimbursed Michael Cohen. Even Hannity was stunned. So afterwards, the media, we all thought that Giuliani had made a mistake. Well, no, it turns out that the president wanted him to do this. Now, one reason could be, as Michael Avenatti, who's the attorney for Stormy Daniels, pointed out today, was that perhaps that this was disclosed because this is going to eventually come out in two separate court proceedings that may play out. One, the civil lawsuit filed with Stormy Daniels to get out of this non-disclosure agreement that came as a result of that hush money payment. And two, a criminal proceeding that may take place if Michael Cohen is charged with any crimes in relation to his business dealings and the like. He's under a criminal investigation right now. And there's a belief that perhaps this would have eventually come out, and they appears to have made the calculated decision. This is the time to get it out now because eventually the public is going to learn the truth.
Manu Raju from Washington, CNN's senior congressional correspondent, joining us earlier this afternoon.